Writing summarized text guided practice session. Let's begin. I'll show you the question, and after that you can pause the video for 10 minutes. Come back once you have written the summary in those 10 minutes and resume the video. From there on, we'll look at a sample response and then discuss the steps one by one. Here's your first question. You can pause the video now for 10 minutes. All right, I hope you have found this easy and written a really good summary. Let's go ahead and look at the sample response. Cocoa, though mainly used by Aztecs in beverages such as chocolate drinks, was also used as a currency and even had great religious significance. Now, let's go back at the text and see how we would go about this in a step-by-step manner. The first thing that we discussed was the first step is to read the text, right? So you start at the top. Don't spend too much time on any one sentence. You can quickly skim through, just make a note of what's the important information and where that is. So in the beginning, it says cocoa was mainly used as a beverage. Wines and drinks were made. The beans were used to make hot chocolate. Aztec secular drinks used roasted cocoa beans. Again, talking about drinks a lot. After that, cocoa beans were also used as a currency, and then the oily layer was used to protect the skin against sun. For the Aztecs, cocoa had a religious significance. It was believed to be of divine origins, human sacrifices, priests, marriage ceremonies, god of learning. So it's all related to cocoa's religious significance. Now that you have some idea of what the text is, you have skimmed through, we can say that how is it structured? In the beginning, they tell us cocoa and its uses as a beverage. After that, something about currency, and then its religious importance. So that is how the text is structured. The theme, it's easy to tell now. It's all about cocoa and its importance for Aztecs back then. So you understand the theme. Now understand the main points here or the arguments. The main points, as we said, first, they talk a lot about beverages, then about currency, and then its religious importance. Those are the three main points. There's also a mention of how a part of cocoa, the chocolate drink, was used to protect the skin against the sun. So that can be another point. But overall, I think it's a minor point. So, and you don't have to cover everything. Mainly, you have to show that cocoa was very important to the Aztecs. Now, so you understood the arguments, and the next step is to understand the examples. Examples or any supplementary information which adds to the main point. The main point in the first part of the text here is that cocoa was used as a beverage. After that, it's all an examples of beverages, wines, drinks, hot chocolate, cold chocolate, vanilla, chili ingredients in the drinks. So those are all the examples and extra information. We try to understand that so that we can ignore this additional information which we don't need. Similarly, the next part, we can focus on that it was used as a currency, but we don't need to explain that as a tribute text from peoples ruled by Aztecs. And then the third point, to protect the skin, maybe we might use it, we might not use it, but for now, yeah, it looks like it is one of the uses, so we'll keep an eye on it. And the next whole paragraph is about religious significance. First, yeah, they just tell that it has religious significance, and then all the other sentences after that just explain the various ways it was important in religion. So we don't need to go into those details. Now you've understood that. The next task is to shortlist sentences. So you can take this first sentence was used as a beverage. You can take this sentence were used as a currency. You can also take the oily layer and protection against the skin sentence. And then this sentence, for the Aztecs, cocoa had a religious significance. Now, in your text area where you write the response, you briefly write each of these sentences because those are the key points. Now you have them. And what you will do, you will either combine them together. Of course, you don't want to write a very long summary. So you have to keep it crisp, precise, and at a reasonable word limit, maybe 35, 40. Don't write too long. Once you have done that, what you will do, you will simply review. So let's first look at if you combine those sentences, you will arrive at a sentence like this. Cocoa, though mainly used by Aztecs in beverages such as chocolate drinks, was also used as a currency and even had great religious significance. Someone else can write this in another way, that cocoa was used by Aztecs in many forms, such as chocolate drinks, as a currency, as a skin protection, and even in religious ceremonies. So there are different ways that you can write it, but try not to just take the sentences from the main text and combine them. Because often when you combine them, you end up writing something very big, and most people, they end up making grammatical mistakes there. But if you just focus on the key point that, what is this special about? It's about cocoa and how it was used by Aztecs. Then it focuses you in the right direction. You can focus in the right direction. So do that. And once you have written a summary, what you have to do, you have to review it. The first thing in your review is ask yourself, if somebody who has not read the passage, the main text, reads this, will he get the same essential information as the person will get from the main text? Now, yes, in this text, the person will be able to understand that Aztecs use cocoa in many different ways, and he'll also come to know some of those ways in which it was used. And that's what the text is also about. So if the answer to that question is yes, it means you have written a good summary. Then what you need to review, check the spellings, check for any grammar mistakes. And if you think you have just copied, pasted and used the same words or sentences, then you can play around and try to arrange them in a different way. You have 10 minutes. I would advise you leave the last 2 minutes for a review. It will make a big difference to your score. And once you have done, then do not forget to submit the answer before the time runs out. Don't wait for the 10-minute time limit to run out, thinking that it will automatically submit. Maybe at 9 minutes, 59 seconds, but you can submit it. But definitely make sure that you submit it yourself within the time limit. Okay, now spend some time, compare your response with this sample response. And if your response is like this or better than this, then wonderful. Otherwise, try to understand how you can make your response better. Because the best way to learn how to write well is by seeing what other people have written. Okay, let's go to the next question now. Here's the text. Now you can pause the video for 10 minutes, write your summary in those 10 minutes and come back. Welcome back. Let's have a look at a sample response. Opponents of beauty pageants argue that they're demeaning to women and are fighting for Australian women to be respected for qualities other than just their physical appearance. Let's go back. The first thing, you have to read the text. As you read the text, it starts with some Australian women and who won Miss Universe, Miss Teen titles. And after that, how these wins have also sparked a debate whether Australia was going back to the days when women were respected for just how they looked. The next sentences, they are about the opponents of these beauty pageants who think that they're demeaning to women, that is disrespectful to women. And after that, the next few sentences, that how Australia has taken some steps towards equality, but young women, they still think that they are judged more on their physical appearance than anything else. So if now I ask you about what the theme of the text is, you can say that it is about the pageants, these beauty contests, and how in Australia they've led to a debate that whether they really have any value or are just disrespectful to women. The way this is structured initially in the beginning, the first sentence tells how the beginning of these beauty pageants, these contests, and then starts by giving the view of the opponents, people who oppose these, and then a few general paragraphs. The next 2-3 paragraphs, they are about the state of women, especially young women in Australia, and how they feel uncomfortable about their physical appearance when they see all of this happening around them. So that's how it is structured. You need to understand the arguments, and you've already done that. The first paragraph, it introduces beauty contests in Australia and how Australians look at that. And then the next few paragraphs, they are about the view of the opponents and what they think. The examples, there are examples such as Miss Universe, Miss Teen International. They tell which pageants these are, but we don't need to go into these details. Also, these beauty title winners, Jennifer Hawkins, Lauren Eagle, we don't need to name them, talk about them. You can just focus on what the message here is. Similarly, these other examples that women, they can have better role models who are more inspiring, such as Professor Fiona Stanley. So we also don't need to do that as long as we understand that it's there, it's given as a way of comparing between the choices that on one hand, the women can look up to, the young girls can look up to like Professor Stanley, and on the other hand, they have the pressure from these beauty contests. So ignore all those details, the years, etc. We'll just focus on the main points. Then you shortlist a few sentences. So these sentences can be Wins have sparked a debate. This can be one. Then you talk about opponents. Opponents argue that these are demeaning to women. And then I think the rest all is just tells about how they are demeaning. So essentially those are the 2 or 3 main points, and you take them, you put them in the text area, and the next step is you rephrase or try to combine them. So this is one way. Opponents of beauty pageants argue that they're demeaning to women and are fighting for Australian women to be respected for qualities other than just their physical appearance. You can also write it in another way. You can say that the young women in Australia are under a lot of pressure from beauty pageants that promote a false body image and create undue pressure on young women. That would also be one of the acceptable summaries. So, as I said, there are different ways you can write it. So, you can start by saying, writing from Australian women and how they face the pressure created by these pageants, and how, on the other hand, they also have examples of better role models. So, that can be one way you write it. Or you can take the angle, you can start by talking about the opponents of beauty pageants. So, there are different ways. But try not to just simply take sentences and combine them. That should always be your last resort, that you take sentences and you just combine them. It's a way to meet the requirement. And yeah, it's better than leaving the question unanswered. But if you're aiming for a very good score, then don't just try to take sentences and combine them as they are. In the next step, the last step, you have to review. So check for any spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes. Make sure that the summary conveys the main idea. And if you notice there is any unnecessary information that you've included in your summary, then use the time that you have at the end to remove that. Make your summary crisp, to the point, precise. And once you're confident, then just go ahead and submit it.